Hello to our podcast where we are discussing psychology and spirituality of life, healing traumas, and looking at narcissism, talking about spiritual awakening, past lives, hypnotherapy, and more. With Elmira Strange, motivational and educational psychologist, and Eugene, transformative counselor. Welcome. Hello, Eugene. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Welcome to my studio. This time you are in my studio, so it's quite exciting actually to have you here. I hope you're doing well.
I am, and I am excited to be in your studio this time and to converse with you and to share more information.
We have so many topics that we could discuss. We have so much in common. And I was looking, you're a transformative counselor, but you're also a light worker. So it's a real psycho-spiritual journey here.
Yes.
Definitely.
You know, it's interesting because for a long time, I knew down deep, well, I naturally have always counseled people instinctively, but for a long time I resisted it because I had other things I was focused on. And as you know, we are always changing, evolving if we choose to. And it's just been in the last few years that a light bulb went on and it's like, why aren't you doing that work? But I think it was the correct timing. But it's interesting when you say light worker, because I don't know if a lot of people even understand what that means. And for a long time, I didn't either. I just think it's that we are here to, or I am here, or we are to spread light, to help all of us have that moment where we realize that the power comes from within and that we have our own lights and we can shine them and we can choose to define what that means. And another thing that really helped me was I've really been working on dialing into my intuition. So when I think of transformative counseling, it's the tools I've learned from your courses, from all of my past life experiences, but also I've really learned to tune into my awareness, as we call mindfulness, to listen and to build that relationship with my inner knowing, which I think is where the intuition comes from.
This is very interesting. That would be one of my questions. What this term light worker means actually to you. That is one of my questions.
But I love it. Yeah, I love it. Yeah, so I think I had a thing earlier this year where I said I'm coming out as a light worker. And I think for a long time, it was, I wanted to be validated through the work as a performer, a TV host, a vocalist, an event producer, all the things that I was doing, especially in New York City, because as we had mentioned before, my husband and I were out there for a few years and we co-produced an off-Broadway limited show. I sang at Carnegie Hall, you know, all these amazing, wonderful things like the dreams, the stars in the eyes. But then the pandemic happened and I started really, you know, doing more of the inner work because one, I had the time, right? The work went away. We were all collectively in that. And then secondly, I started doing a lot of internal healing work around abuse that I had experienced as a child and through a narcissist relationship with my father. And that's what one of your courses did for me, was it really helped me learn more about narcissism, especially the disorder around that of abuse and how it's a cycle of abuse. And so I think that's when the light worker came in. It was like, I'm identifying now that I'm doing the work of healing. And when I see healing, I think of the shadow side of darkness reveals the light, right? It's like the yin and the yang. So I think light worker means to me is that I'm stepping fully into the potential of healing my own past and then helping others through the work of revealing that to spark that from within themselves, hopefully.
This is an incredible journey, really, for you. You've done so much. I can see that you have a lot of creative skills and they were expressed in so many venues throughout your life. It's incredible, you know, to do the show. And it's very interesting even to hear about it. And now you're here transforming people's lives. That's what you are doing through your work. I do like that you're combining spirituality and psychology, because I love that too. Bridging or making the bridge between these two spheres, really. And both of them complement each other. As I was saying the other day, I was saying to somebody, I said, most of my courses are aimed at students who study psychology. So it's pure, well, you can say science, even though some people argue that psychology is a science. But I was saying that actually I love talking about spirituality as well, because I do think it enhances both. It's a holistic way of viewing anyone. And my friends actually were saying to me, you shouldn't be afraid to bring that light worker path onto your journey, because truly people benefit from both. And if you think about anybody who is into spirituality as well as psychology and counseling, it actually gives you like more rounded, holistic view of things, of issues that people come with. And that would be actually my next question is, what kind of issues people come with, and what do they have these days, what they struggle with? So what would be who are your clients, you can say?
Thank you for asking that question. It's interesting what I've been noticing, because I am happy to say that I am working with a few people right now, more than a few, but I like to keep that confidential in the sense of who they are. But this is what I am finding a general theme. There's a general theme of a sensitivity. I feel that I attract the terminology and the title of empath. So empathic, highly sensitive souls, beings, people. And that is people that feel deeply, not only for themselves, but can hold the space for others, and they can sense and I think that's part of the light worker too. I think a lot of empathic people that are more prone to that, because I always see, as I also learned from you, is there's different spectrums and levels of, there's the real extreme narcissist, and then there's the other spectrum of it, which is more empathic. Then there's all different levels that we meet in between. Social media, as you mentioned in the course, was something that is primarily narcissistic, really. Although it doesn't mean that the people that are going, look at me, I'm having fun, or I do it all the time, or express myself in a certain way, that doesn't mean that you have a disorder of narcissism. It means that you're sharing and you're proud. But again, there's different levels. So the clients that I seem to be working right now that reach out to me are people that want to empower themselves and almost take their power back. And when I say that, I don't mean like literally I'm going to strip someone else of their power. It's that I'm reclaiming mine to say my worth and value is not determined on another person. And a lot of them have been abused as children. There's been cycles of abuse. And when you're empathic and highly sensitive and you're abused, I think most empaths have, because they're kind of a doormat, because they open up and then get walked on through the process, and then through the process lose themselves, especially as children. So it's redefining and counseling them to reclaim their power, create their own space of healing for themselves first, like we talked, putting the oxygen mask on first. So they're so used to, and a lot of us in society, we put it on everybody else first. We deplete ourselves, whether we're professionally, personally, parents, lovers, teachers, whatever. It's so we're reversing and creating that inner relationship, learning how to heal, finally express in a safe place of what happened, realizing we're no longer victims to that, and then starting a new journey of self-discovery. And then from there, most likely helping others through that. So that seems to be, and a lot of them have, like I said, abuse, but they're all different types. And some of it ties in with addiction. And so I'm noticing abuse tied in with addiction, and being able to retrain to realize that no longer defines who I am or who they are. That's no longer my story.
This is, whilst you're talking, I'm thinking there are so many layers to this topic, actually. The narcissism, empath, the thing is, when I was writing my course, I was looking at it like that. Yeah, there are narcissists and there are empaths or victims of narcissism quite often. So now you're saying, yeah, there are some in between. But also what I've realized is that a lot of people who are higher on the scale of narcissism, because a lot of people are, it's what we call also ego. Yeah, there's an ego in it, but we all have a bit of ego. So it's kind of another topic. It's like, what's the role of that ego or that narcissism thing, the narcissistic side of all of us? So it's kind of protecting us,
Yes.
It is protecting us in some way or another. But what I wanted to say as well is that people who are high on narcissism, they often have low self-esteem, believe it or not. Inside, they're traumatized children, that something happened to them a long time ago. And there was almost a split between these two personalities. The one which became adult self, which is trying to protect themselves with this persona, I am so cool and I will be famous and I'm fabulous. But there is another one, which is that child which was deeply traumatized. And if you are living with a person who are high on narcissism, especially if they have narcissistic personality disorder, you might see actually that part of them coming out, especially if there is a big argument or something, and then the person can revert to that state of being that child. You even can see what approximate age of the child will be displayed, and that's when the trauma happened. This is what I've realized with time and with learning about narcissism.
Very much so. Thank you for saying that, because it's interesting, like you said. I think whether you're prone to being empathic, sensitive, or like you said, the other, where they split the personality almost and become the outside of what they think they should be. It's like, it's definitely a mask. It's an image. But I think it's that, like you said, it's a disconnect. And I think what I've learned, not only from you, but from personal experience, being raised by one, and as I'm counseling people, is that in that time of trying to feel safe, they chose to go into that place. And so it's a facade, and it's I'm always right, I'm powerful, but like you said, underlining, they feel worthless. So their worthlessness shows up in that. And then as time goes by, that pattern locks in, right? I think if a child went that direction, but had the help at the time to be, treated from a psychiatric point or from a medical standpoint, they could heal and not get locked into that. But I think, like what I saw, I'm going to openly speak, what I saw with my father from little up and still see, he's still alive. He's 93 years old. That's another thing that's interesting, is a lot of people with NPD, I've noticed, especially men and women, they live a very long time. I've known many that are considered, I've talked to people. There's another gentleman I talked to, and he says, oh, my father has, narcissistic personality disorder, and he's 97. And so they think they're able to protect themselves and create the facade, and then it becomes their story within their ego, and it's a defense, mechanism, and they are master manipulators. And so if there's more of a person, let's say you're being raised by one, or a colleague, your boss has the disorder, they know how to manipulate people and control people to fit into that facade. But most of their relationships will fall apart over time, because the facade can only last for so long. But what I've also realized is that, like, my grandfather was also abused. It's a cycle, right? And there's some gene, hereditary, that moves through the genetic, I think, system of cycle, because my grandfather abused my father as a raging alcoholic and would beat him. He shut down, And then when I came into the picture, he didn't physically hit me, but he threw things at me. There was rage all the time. Yet, to everybody else, they thought he was the most amazing man and that I had the most perfect life. There's a lot of hiding that goes. And so people have to tiptoe around. We all tiptoed around. And then just in the last 3 years, over all this time, I stood up and I said, I will no longer tiptoe. I had to choose me. And that's when the healing for me really clicked in. Even though I had been working on myself for all these years, I was craving for the outside validation. I thought if he could tell me he was proud of me, then I was worth something, because I chose not to honor my worth. So it's very interesting. It's different within every dynamic and every family unit or, professional unit. So I'm still learning so much about putting all the pieces together of why some people go one way, because I was abused, but I didn't become narcissistic. I was the other.
Exactly.
I know there's a lot going on here, but I wanted to share because I think this is what we have to do, right? We have to continue to share vulnerably and see how this all is coming out to play, because I think a lot of people are still going, I still don't even know what this means, because it's all coming out publicly now, and we're seeing this in government. We're seeing this especially in America. I'm gonna say his name, Donald Trump. He is full narcissist. He is mirroring to all Americans and the rest of the world. If you want to see a narcissist, just watch him.
Well, the research shows that in politics, most people are very high on narcissism. So
right?
That's a statistic. Yeah, to get into politics, it means you probably will be stepping on the people's, wishes, desires, heads, whatever you want to call it. Mm-hmm. So in certain professions, there is a high level of narcissistic people. It shows in statistics. For example, in the profession of lawyers, that would be another example. That's where a lot of people who are high on narcissism. Business, generally speaking, because people need to be a little bit more ruthless, maybe less empathic to actually succeed. In fact, There was actually a book written about it, that to be successful in life, and I mean successful, that will be different thing for everybody. This is what I was actually writing in my course. Success can be something like you're earning a lot of money, or success could be you living the life on your terms, the way you like it. So it doesn't necessarily you are a millionaire or whatever that is. Or successful, you could be in politics if you want to be a politician, right? Mm-hmm. So in any case, in order to become truly successful in the public eye, ideally you need to have certain qualities, you can say. Less empathy, more being ruthless and things like that. So in essence, it describes a full-on narcissist. And some people were saying, oh, I would like to be successful. Doesn't mean I have to become a narcissist. So that's one question. And another question, which you said, if only those children, they had some help, maybe they wouldn't be like that. But then saying that, a lot of us had various traumas. And some of us became more empathic and want to help other people, whereas others went other way. Even you can see it in the families where there are two children and they're very different. One of them will be highly narcissistic, and another one will be very empathic, and they will have a completely different circle of friends. So
I'm glad you brought that up.
Kind of makes you think, what is it? What is that link? Right?
Yeah. But, well, okay. So since you asked that, I'll tell you from my perception. I'm coming now from a very metaphysical, spiritual standpoint and viewpoint. In my belief, my truth currently today, because it continues to evolve, I feel on a soul level, I believe that we choose to come back if we want to. I believe there's not just one life. That's my perception. I feel that way. I feel that many of us have been here many times, some have not. I do not personally resonate with someone is more evolved in the sense of being better than. I believe that our soul, our energy, the evolution of who we are collectively, that we come here for the human experience, we choose to come here, and we have key players within our soul group or soul tribe that show up how they're meant to. So I think what you said is, how could some be born in the same family, have the same type of abuse, one be more people pleasing, or they lose themselves in the sense of, like, I'm not successful, I'm unworthy, I'm the little empath, and then the others come into the other way. I'm narcissistic, I'm powerful, I'm going to get what I want, and I'm going to run over everybody in the process. Maybe, just maybe, our souls came in with one energy to show the shadow, the light, the yin and the yang, whatever you want to call it, the division of the opposites, for us to be able to coexist and almost play a game of evolution through it. So the way I'm healing was my father showed up exactly how he was supposed to. And the way I'm healing is to be able to finally stand up and say, thank you. I no longer need to experience this. I'm complete. I'm moving on. Now, that's how I'm viewing it now. I'm not saying that is everybody's truth, but to me, it makes sense, because we could break it down. Like, I do believe with you that it's great to have the science to look at the facts, the psychology of it, but there's so much of the unknown that we don't know and that we continue to learn. And I think as a universe, as a solar system, as a planet, we are evolving. If you think about it, we're going around right now, the Earth is rotating. It continues to. And if you scientifically look at things over time, billions of years, millions of years, you see all these layers, even within the minerals and rocks of a canyon. There's layers, and that's how they, gauge the time and view the time. So why can't we be evolving the same way as the human race? We come in over time. And there's another thing I heard recently, and I think you've probably heard this too, and maybe I heard it from you, but that there's a cycle of a time in our planet where I think it's every 80 years they're starting to say that we are repeating patterns, like within war that we're seeing, or within suffering, or even the planet with the heating and the cooling. Now, I'm not saying that there isn't climate change and we're not speeding it up. I'm not saying that at all. But if we look over time, depending on what we believe in, there's been all these cycles. Our lifespans are very short if you think about it. When you think of 1 billion years, we're a speck. 50, 60, 70, 80, 90 years, that's a speck within billions of years. That's like a piece of sand. So that's what I say about that. But again, that's how I feel now.
This is very interesting, actually, because you almost, before I ask you something, you're already talking about it. This is very interesting.
But I see, that's what I think we all have the ability to do. I think we all have antennas. And I think we have not been trained to use our intuition to go through our chakra systems. We have the crown, we have the third eye. I feel that the crown opens up to the information. We filter it through here. We can speak it through here. We can feel it through here. And then I feel that we manifest it through solar sacral root into the physical. And then I think we can continue to do that. We're not trained to do that. We're not trained to do that in school. We're not trained. Well, some people are, but not overall. And I think that if we all realize that we're our own masters, we're our own co-creators, then I think that's when life is a playground and this human experience is a playground, even with all the suffering that's occurring. Because without the suffering, would we evolve? I don't think so. I think we would all if everything was perfect and peaceful all the time, we'd have I think there'd be a lot of fun, there'd be a lot of love. But where would we go from there? I don't know.
Well, you are going from the point of spirituality, which obviously I love, and I share a lot of your views. I believe in many of these things. And actually, my question was, what do you think is changing right now? Are we transitioning into some different era and some different dimension, or some 5D dimension or something like that? That's from spirituality. But really, generally speaking, how things are changing for humanity, really, that's on a big scale.
I think we are, but I think we have been before. I see it as that we're looping. I see that collectively as a human race, we're moving towards it. And again, my perception, I think that if a majority of humans right now stopped for a minute, all of us collectively, and went, wake up, and we released the old paradigm of what was not working, then we would create a new loop. I think of loop as energy. We keep looping. Just like, think about it. I'll say this to my people that I counsel. If you get triggered by something, so let's say as a child, you were told that you're fat or you're overweight. I hate to use those word fat, but I'm saying that's what someone would say in a negative way. You're fat. Let's say you lose all this weight as an adult, but you still feel fat. Inside, you've been told as a child you're fat. So no matter how much weight you take off, I'm fat. And you keep looping into that. My perception and my title or my identity is I'm overweight. It's the same thing, I think, collectively. We're not collectively, there's some of us that are going, we don't have to act this way anymore. We don't have to rule by greed. We don't have to rule by pedestals and power in a corrupt place. But so many people are afraid to take themselves out of that identity, And so, but some of us are going, I don't need it anymore. I get it. It's not who I was. It's not who I am on a core level. So there's a lot of resistance. There's a lot of division. And I think if there was a certain amount of people and we co-created the change, we would continue to evolve in a different way. But I can't say we're going into a new Aquarius or we're going into the new frequency of 3D to 4D to 5D. I do think we are going from third dimension to fourth to fifth, but I think there's people that are already in energy that way, which is frequency. And I think there's a big portion of people that aren't. So to me, that's what's going like, we're going like this. For my perception. So my answer to your question is, I don't really know. All I know is I've decided for me, I'm stepping into a different frequency. And if other people aren't, that's their choice. If they choose to suffer, that's their choice. But in this lifetime right now as Eugene, I'm choosing differently. And I think that's what I focus on. I don't love to see people suffer. I don't love to see people killed and murdered. I don't love to see people, in tragedy. But I can only do what I can do for myself, and therefore send love and light from there. But I cannot save everybody on the planet right now. That's up to them. That's up to us as a whole. But each of us can save ourselves. That's, again, how I feel about religion too. But that's my opinion.
Right. But actually, maybe of him. He's a researcher and author. His name is David Wilcox, who's writing. Yeah, he's talking. Actually, I remember even in his books prior to that, many years ago, he was saying about the cycles that repeats, like you were saying, that everything repeats. The wars and even when we have like virus that kills off thousands of people, things like that, it repeats, and you can see it mathematically, literally, when something is going to happen to humanity, to this planet, or to big regions and things like that. So that's what I wanted to comment on. And about transitioning to all this, like they say, 4D, 5D, I think it's a lot about awareness. Like you said, you choose not to suffer anymore, and others have the same choice. But it seems like for many years, it feels like we didn't have that choice, in a way that, not that nobody taught us, but it seems like it was, I was growing up in Soviet Union, right? So I was born in Kazakhstan and I lived a bit in Russia. So it was the Soviet Union, and then it was collapsing. So it was a lot of that idealism of how things should be. And when I was growing up, whether you lived in Kazakhstan or Azerbaijan or Ukraine or Russia, life was the same. That's the interesting thing. We had the same books. We all spoke Russian, even though other countries had second language, but they always speak in the same language. We had the same goods, same products. We know a lot of TV programs and kiddie TV programs, all the same. So it seems like we had kind of created for us the way we're supposed to live.
Exactly.
And we were all living that. And as with anything in life, you cannot say that that was a bad thing, that communism, Soviet way of living, it was really bad. No, there was some pluses in it as well. There were like prices, for example. There were a lot of things were affordable for people at the time. There was less visible corruption than it happened since 90s, when it was a lot of corruption and crime. But so what I'm trying to say is that we were kind of created by society, I mean, and by politicians, to think in a certain way that we don't have a choice.
Yeah.
But now we're awakening, and it seems like now we can have a choice, and we start listening to the law of attraction. Abraham Hicks, for example, who is constantly saying for years, you have a choice. If you focus on positives, you will attract more positives in your life. So a lot of people now are changing, and that's what we call awakening, really. And like you say, if more people, or even all people, could just wake up to the idea that we are all connected and we all can focus on positives rather than negatives, the world will be a completely different place.
Completely.
But hopefully we are kind of heading to that direction.
I would think so. I would hope so. I mean, I would love that. I think it's a level of, I really feel collectively, I keep using that word, but I do, my truth is, and many of our truths is, that we're all connected because we come from the same place. We might be individually different as humans on the planet, different cultures, different religions, different skin tones, ethnicities, all of it. Yet at the same time, the energy is energy. But I do think that Earth, within our solar system, at least things I've heard, things I've felt, things I've read, is that we are considered one of the most challenging planets to evolve from and on. So I do think there are other obviously there's other solar systems. We already know that. But I'm saying there's other planets with life form. A lot of people say, no, we're the only ones. I can't imagine we're the only ones. I just think that being human on this planet is like a schoolyard. It's like a classroom. And I think we choose to come here for the really hard work. And I think that some of us wake up quicker than others, but I don't think it's not a better thing. It's not like someone gets an A and someone gets an F. I think it's where we're at, and it's, again, choice, and you have to work at it. You can't, I mean, think about it. Think about the distractions we have currently. We always have, but think about it. We have access to anything on the internet instantaneously. We can watch anything we want. Well, most of us can, right? The people that have the accessibility to it over our planet. And there's always seems to be the next thing. There's another shooting. There's another war scenario. There's another natural disaster. There's this, there's that. We can distract ourselves any second of the day. We can project outward, shut this down internally, and just kind of blindly wander. And so many of us are victims within that. We're not victims. We really aren't. Now, when I say that, there are people victimized right now as we're speaking. They're trapped. They're afraid. And you can ask, well, why are they going through this and why am I not? Well, I don't have all the answers to that, but I will say this. If I've been back here many times, which I feel I have, I might have been exactly where they were 80 years ago, 1,000 years ago, whatever, because there's been things happening for thousands of years, ever since humans were, that we evolved and created into the next phase of evolution. I feel we all at some point have chosen to go through different suffering. And the suffering is a choice, but then as a human that is not awake to it, it's like, why, God? Why are you putting me through this? Why is this okay? And we will know that when we leave the planet, I suppose, to the full extent. But there's so many belief systems, so many religions, so many schools of thoughts. But I will say this, our world is controlled by a viewpoint that we are not connected, and that we all have to fight to get what we want. And especially in America, we have turned our world into a reality show. Our whole world here, well, our whole reality in America is you got to be better than the next person. And if you're not, you're a loser. And if you're not a loser, you're a winner. There's nothing in between. Now, that's a story, but a lot of people believe that. And so in their mind, they're ruled by fear, right? If you're ruled by fear, you will do whatever it takes to survive.
Hence the defense mechanisms, hence these narcissistic masks on, on, because deep inside there's a fear. Fear, for example, again, back to narcissism, for example, there is a big fear of being abandoned by people, not being loved, accepted, approved. Right. And that's a big one. And in fact, actually, if you look at anything that we do, you can ask yourself, why am I feeling this way? Why do I need it? For example, if you are someone who cannot be without having people in your life, you need to have friends. Right. So you're tolerating any kind of behavior, including toxic ones, just so you have those people in your life. Because then you can ask yourself, why do I have them? Well, because, I have people, I can connect with them. We can support each other. Yeah, but why do I, cling on to like everybody? Why do I have those people? Well, because maybe I don't want to feel lonely. And so, the more you ask why, eventually you get to the point where I'm afraid. And it will be, I'm afraid of being alone. I'm afraid I'm not loved. I'm afraid to die alone and things like that. It's incredible. Once I started experimenting, I saw that a lot of our behavior is based on fear. Even though it's supposed to be based on love, in reality, it's based on fear.
Mm-hmm. It's all conditions, right? We think of love. I love what you said, by the way. Thank you. And we think of love, conditional love, unconditional love. Then there's the self-love. Do we love ourselves unconditionally? Therefore, can we love others unconditionally? But our system and our society is based on conditions, right? If you, just even holidays like Christmas, if you're a good boy, Santa brings you a present, or a good girl. If you're a bad boy or girl, you get coal. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, in a lot of religion, if you proclaim that Jesus is your savior, you're saved. If you don't, you're going to hell. It's all conditional, black and white. How is anybody, unless they know that that's not their truth, how is anybody ever supposed to not be afraid? Because where do you think all the anxiety came from? OCD started to be created. I mean, even with men over time with abuse, all the pressure on straight heterosexual men, or all men, whether they're gay, straight, bi, trans, whatever. What I'm saying, though, is men at a certain time, especially in the late 1800s, early 1900s, it was the man is in control by the church, the man provides, and everybody else is secondary. But think about the pressure these souls as men had. Not all men felt that way, but were told this is what you do. And if you don't, you will face the consequences.
Exactly.
So it just continues. It's the cycles, right? That's why I also try to help instill and to encourage people to break the cycle. Be the one. If you're the empath one and the narcissist refuses to, break the cycle, reclaim your power, take back your worth, your identity, rediscover who you are, because that not only helps you first, it will help them even if they don't know. It breaks ancestral cycles of abuse. And so to me, my mission now on the planet is not to be a famous singer or a famous TV host. It's to be someone that breaks these patterns over time within my ancestral line and to help others do that. That to me is my job. I work for the universe now. I work for the universe.
Excellent, excellent. I love it. I love it. Actually, you know what? I'm actually at this stage of life where I also feel that I'm working for universe.
Yes.
Yeah, truly. And when I was questioning, like, what is my work? I like to come from that point where I like to inspire people. I like to motivate them. I want that people realize that they have more freedom than they think they have. And when they're feeling freer and more relaxed about where they are, then they become more confident, because confidence is being relaxed.
Yeah.
That's what I've read at some point, and I thought that's a really good one. Yeah.
Yes,
So
and you are doing that every day.
I'm trying to do my best, and so are you. And also wanted to say that I'm fascinated by the work of Dolores Cannon. So
yes, I love Dolores Cannon's work. I love her work.
Yeah, and there is a lot of information that came through from people who were under hypnosis, and pretty deep hypnosis, which actually I've just started to learn in her methods of hypnosis, that quantum healing, QHTT. Yay! So it's fascinating, absolutely fascinating. I know it takes us a little bit away from it, but it's such an interesting topic as well. And I was listening the other day. I was listening to her video, which is a part of the learning course. Not that I'm advertising this course. I don't have any incentive to advertise it, but it's fascinating. And what she's saying there, she said that, we can put a person under this somnambulistic state, which is like really deep state of hypnosis. And she said, and I can say to the subconscious, which is really higher self rather than the subconscious, to scan the body, find what needs to be repaired, and it will be repaired. And she said, the work I've seen in front of me, it was instantaneous. And she said, I've seen the body, it could be literally like the person will go and get diagnosis of something like liver is collapsing or whatever. And then they would come to her work, to her hypnosis, and then they come out, they can do the test again, and it will be completely different. What was happening in the body. So basically she could prove it, that the healing was happening, which kind of makes me think. And also alongside of that, I'm in Mexico, and I had a conversation with one of my friends who's into tarology, and she's very good at it. And I have to say, and we have very deep conversations about the not so much about being psychic or whatever, but being intuitive and using tools that work for you. And she was saying to me, well, we are in Mexico, where we have a lot of traditions based on shamanism. We have rituals here, we have ceremonies, and I mean, it's available to anybody who's in Mexico. That's how they're available. And a lot of people have heard about ayahuasca ceremonies, for example. That's one of them. And there are so many others. And she was saying that, consider this, that many people, and she's historian, by the way, by her profession. She says, consider this, that people in Mexico and Peru and other countries nearby, they used these ceremonies as healing modalities, and healing for both the body and the mind and the spirit, you can say, all three. And they were relying so much on them that to go to hospital and see the doctor, it was probably more rare than go to see a shaman who will go through ceremony with you, will take you through some ceremony and will give you some herbs and things like that. And we were saying about the difference between the Western world, where we look at it with doubt, and where they are growing up totally trusting that that's the way to heal themselves. So that's the very interesting thing. We have healing of body and mind that's happening under hypnosis instantaneously. And we have here something like ayahuasca ceremonies where it can also happen in one night. So it's, the more we talk about it and the more we think about it, the more questions we have. Yes. Are we truly can heal our body and mind? So that means we always have a choice. Like, again, like you say, a choice in suffering, but also a choice of being ill versus being healthy in body and mind.
Oh boy, you hit it right on the nail, because I have felt this way for quite a while, that we are our own self-healers. Not only like we're talking about healing up the patterns of abuse and breaking the cycles, but I do believe that we have been given these chakras, as healing energy centers. If we reawaken them, clear them through, and allow them to do their job. If you look at, you can even Google this, but certain areas of the core centers of the chakras will go out in energies to different parts of the organs and the body. So I do believe with what you said is that I think that healing can be instantaneous. I don't think it has to be drawn out, but I think that just like with belief system of worthiness, or I should do this to be okay or successful, is the same thing of going, I don't have to go to another human being to heal myself. I have my own power from where I come from to do that. When I say that, though, it's a cautious thing, because we're not trained in that, like you said, maybe in Mexico with the shamans or other parts of the world. But America, there are schools of thoughts, of course, around that. I believe that. And I do feel that there is an opportunity to do that. But I also think that it's a balance, because my mother, now speaking of her, she passed away of cancer when I was 23. She was only 59. And she did not believe that she could internally heal, but she also didn't believe in Western medicine. She was using a lot of Eastern modalities, but she decided to go into denial and block it out. So she'd go to the chiropractor, she'd go get acupuncture, but she wasn't connecting within. She didn't think she had the power to heal herself. So she had this treatment, but needed the Western medicine to help her, because she didn't connect that way for her in this lifetime. So the cancer ended up killing her in a year or two, even because, and she didn't do chemo, she did radiation because she had to, it was a choice. But see, I think you have to believe, you have to work at it, and know it's your truth, and sometimes pull from different, Eastern or Western. But I do think we can heal ourselves. I mean, that was a long explanation, but I think you have to do the inner work. You can't just say, I'm going to heal myself, I'm going to go get acupuncture or hypnotherapy, or, drink all of these natural green juices 8 times a day, because she did that as well. I think it's a twofold process. And I think that's what we're given as humans. We're given all these herbs and beautiful things that we have co-created on the planet, but then we have to take those modalities and be able to implement them and retrain ourselves to do that.
This is very interesting, actually. And, on this one, especially as we are talking about Dolores Cannon work, for example, as one of these people who were talking about the life after death, for example, and how we are coming here as souls. And so there is a subject of, or there's a theme of having a contract, right? Having a contract with other souls here and coming with some purpose and for a certain amount of time, which kind of brings you to the question whether it was a contract for that length of time, for including your mother and all other people, where no matter how many green juices we drink, it's our time is up, and then that's it. We have to leave, kind of thing, as if we're quitting this game. It's kind of like that, or whether we can extend it with green juices and connecting to ourselves and doing the inner work.
Yeah, and it also could be, we're talking about dimensions, frequency. It could also be the where our soul is within this lifetime of frequency. I mean, like you said, it could be a contract where it's like, you're going to go to Earth, you're going to feel this, you're going to experience that, and you're going to get cancer and you're going to die at this age. I don't know. But I also think because we're in choice as co-creators and as co-healers or healers of ourselves and others, when I say of others, I think when we're healers, I don't ever proclaim I'm going to heal anybody. They have to heal themselves. I give them tools, I give them an open space, I bring in intuition, and I bring them some knowledge. But really, I'm creating a safe, neutral place of energy where they don't feel they have to be anything but where they are at the current moment. And that is continuing to change if we allow it to. I feel that, let's say someone's hit by a car and it just happens. But I think sometimes with dis-ease, illness, there is hereditary genes. You can be predetermined to have that, right? Within your genetic system, your cells, your makeup. But I do think that if we acknowledge it and open up to it, I do think we could prolong our life. I do think there can be an opening of choice. Someone could choose to get on a plane that's going to crash. They get on, they crash. Someone could say, I got a feeling not to get on that plane. They don't crash. Now, there's another school of thought, like you're talking about, where the person doesn't get on a plane, they get in the car, they still die that day.
Right.
So I get what you're saying. And I think that is, again, something that's individually based for everybody. I think something like you said about like numerology and mathematical time of cycles within this realm, the matrix, we think of the matrix a lot. There's some of it that this has all been predetermined, and it's like a matrix of mathematic, I don't know what you want to call it. You might know the term better than I do, but there's a school of thought that it's all laid out. But see, within the matrix, we're the co-creators, and maybe we can change and evolve within the matrix. And that is what I think we're given. It's almost like we talked about weaving. You hear of weavers. That's a new terminology for me. It's almost like a spider. It's like how a spider will create this web through creation. I think there's all of this matrix of web that's been created, but I think you can go in and create your own web within that, if we allow ourselves to do that.
That's very true. And considering also all these tools from biohacking for our health that they come up with, so it seems like we're prolonging. And we can see even some people, even on YouTube, who are kind of proving, if you can say proving, because as a researcher, we're not supposed to say it's proved, right. But still, there is a lot of evidence that there are people who are reversing their age, and they're showing to other people that it is possible if they are going to do certain things like fasting or a certain regime or sleeping. It's actually back to basics, to be honest. If you think about it, it's all about like balance. Good healthy life, really, and less stress, and taking care of yourself and of your soul. It's kind of back to that. Apart from certain things that perhaps certain supplements that we can take and it can help. But again, even supplements, they're usually plant-based, and it's something like rich in antioxidants and things like that, which we're supposed to have anyway, especially before this world got a little bit more tainted, you can say, with all the factory stuff and all the things, all the unhealthy things. But before, perhaps that's how we were living. And also I wanted to say about the when the time to go sort of thing. I remember I used to learn a lot about this plant-based diet and raw vegans and things like that, because I could see that people looked younger, and I was just reading a lot of stuff, and I was watching them, and I remember there were certain people who were into healthy modalities so much, and it seems like they're in the 80s and then in the 90s, and they're doing great, and they're doing raw juices and things like that. And at some point they die, and it will be something like tragic, something like the car hit them, or something like that, like you said. And I remember I was thinking, wow, it seems like they were extending their life through this kind of lifestyle, but they were still hit by a car or whatever it was.
Right. It's so interesting that you bring that up, because that's where I think the balance is. I think about that because I was taught by my mother. She was she was ahead of her time. She just didn't connect back to her self-worth very well. She didn't forgive herself. She didn't love herself very much due to her past and her childhood and the relationship she was in romantically. My father was her second husband. But she taught me as a young child to eat organic food, to wear sunscreen. I mean, this is, I was born in 73. So this wasn't like, this was the 70s, early 80s in Tucson, Arizona, which was a small city at the time. She went to this hole in the wall health food store. She believed in supplements. She told me processed food. She didn't give me Kraft macaroni and cheese or singles or processed food. I had pure food. And I'm telling you, I have been very healthy in my life. I have had very few issues. But at the same time, I had to realize that I had to clean up my emotional trauma, my unworthiness, which she didn't get to do in this lifetime. So I feel like I'm helping her with that. So I do think it's a balance. I think you can do all the right things, but if you're internally feeling off, or you don't feel good about yourself, or it's your time, a car hits you, the plane crashes, a tree falls on you, whatever it is, a sudden thing, I just think it's okay. You've done what you need to do. You're going back home. I call it home. I don't know. Our home where we came from. But it's interesting again, because I think of Olivia Newton-John, who passed away, in the last year. She had cancer multiple times. It came back finally, I think a third time, and then she passed. She worked on herself metaphysically. She took tons of herbs. She believed in Eastern and Western medicine. She built a center in Australia that was a balance of both. She did a lot of healing work. And the reason why I can say this is I humbly say I interviewed her more than once and was so happy I had the chance. But at the end of the day, she was doing all the things she was meant to do, and she still passed away from it. It prolonged her life. She got it, I think, the first time in her early 40s. Now, I might be wrong on the exact dates, but I think it was around late 30s, early 40s. Then she went into remission. And then I think she got it again in her late 60s, then went into remission. And then in her, I believe, early 70s or mid 70s is when it took her. But see, so that's an example to me. She was doing the work. She was clearing up past beliefs. She was evolving. She was using healthy modalities. But at the end of the day, I think she was predetermined. Her genetic makeup had this, her cancer cells, and it took over.
You can say whether it was genetic stuff, or whether it was
environmental,
or it was her contract as a soul to go at some point.
Right. That's the thing. That's the thing about life, Elmira, is that there's so many different scenarios. And I think it goes back to the intuition. I think if we train ourselves, go within, meditate, possibly hypnotherapy, reading, affirming, doing the work, choosing what it works for us. But if we go back to listening to our inner voice and we start to trust that, then I think we listen to what's best for us in this temporary experience. What might work for Olivia Newton-John wouldn't work for me. She was also a famous person. She had a lot of money. She was able and given through her work the opportunities to have the best of everything as well. Some people don't have that. That's something too within our society. Status, class, money. More money, you get this,
Yeah, that's very, very interesting. Mm-hmm. Well, we've been chatting for a while, but I think we can continue on so many topics, and we can go so deeper into all of these, because we touch up on so many themes within. It's like so convoluted. So we could really expand. But I wanted to add one exercise for all of our viewers. If you can do it, that would be great, because that would kind of this is where you get in touch with yourself a little bit more. So this is the exercise which I got just recently from somewhere. So you have to go to the mirror, you have to look at yourself, and first you can say to yourself, I like you. You can start from there, because not everybody can say I love you to yourself, right? Because you're talking to yourself. So that's how you start. You say, I like you. You know, I'm proud of you. I like you. In fact, I think I love you. I love you. You are great. You're doing great. So you can continue with these affirmations. And at some point you can say, you know, I'm so proud of you. I want you to be happy. And you know what? I'm going to promise you now that I will do my best to keep you happy, to make you happy always. You can count on me. I love you. I'm here for you. And I will protect you. I will do anything to make you happy from now on. So this is what I'm going to leave you with. But you can add your own exercise or anything you want to say.
I love what you said. That is definitely the first step. It sometimes can be foreign. I used to have a lot of challenge with it. Now I can really say it most of the time, not all the time, right? You know, something that I'll leave with that is, now this is encompassing basically what you said. So you know, what I do in the morning is I say, I am happy, healthy, whole, and complete, physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, sexually, professionally, creatively, artistically, all of it. Financially, I am healthy, whole, and complete. Then I say, I have happiness, health, ease, safety, stability, neutrality, self-determination, self-expression, prosperity of all coming to me now. I am the answer. I am the answer.
Excellent. That's excellent. And as a psychologist and hypnotherapist now, I can say that your subconscious always listens to you, and it listens to what you are saying to yourself. And this is why affirmations work. So that's amazing. That's what you do in the morning. So yeah, I would suggest to anyone, start your day with saying things like that, affirmations to yourself.
Yes. I just want to thank you for opening this platform up for me today to share. Thank you, because normally I'm asking the questions. So it means a lot to me that you gave me a platform in a safe place with you, because you know I admire you and I appreciate you. I want to also express to anyone that doesn't know you to check out your work. You offer so much, because I didn't always have more of the scientific approach or the psychology standpoint. I had more life experience and then a lot of the spiritual work that I did. For you, you really helped me tie it in. And I think anyone that wants to help other people right now, currently, it really is valuable to have both, because some people aren't ready to open up in such a raw spiritual way. They need more proof. They need more facts. And you know, over time people have learned and they have valuable information to share. So thank you for sharing that with all of us.
Thank you for being in my studio. And I'm privileged to actually to have an interview with people like you, because you have so much valuable information, but also you're coming from this creative flair standpoint, and you have your unique energy that you bring to our studio, to our conversation. And I hope that anyone who was listening to us, they were benefiting from this conversation and learn something. Even those exercises that we just shared, those affirmations that they can do every morning from now on. So thank you for being here. Thank you for coming to my studio on for this discussion. And I hope it's not the last one, and not the last one, and we'll create some other ones, because as I said, we have so many topics that we could discuss. So
I agree. Thank you again. And to everyone watching, remember, you're the answer. You're in choice. It's up to you, and you can take the steps.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you, Elmira.
Bye. Bye. Bye.
Bye.